You can have a huge audience, but if they're not aligned with what you are selling, then you're not going to make sales. And part of the reason why that audience grew so fast was because I was growing it using things like giveaways, which was only attracting freebie seekers. And I was posting really awesome recipes, which was attracting people who wanted recipes, but it wasn't attracting people who wanted to buy what I was selling. Hey, welcome back to Imperfect Action. This is episode 719. Today, I'm sharing a couple of signs that your current audience isn't exactly your ideal client for the offers that you sell, for the services or maybe the digital products, courses, group programs that your business sells. Now, there's this common misconception that if your audience is really big, you will make sales. But just because you have an audience, whether you have followers, subscribers, whatever platform they are on, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the right people for your business. That doesn't mean that they're the right people, the ones who are going to buy what you are selling. And I'm actually a really big believer in quality over quantity. So I think back to my very first business, which was a physical product-based business. We're going back a while now, 7 or 8 years. And before I launched that business, I spent a lot of time growing the Instagram account. Now, this is back in the day when if you posted something to Instagram, people actually saw it. And I spent a lot of time growing that audience. And when we launched the product, I think, there were about 10,000 followers or more than that. And I eventually ended up growing that account to over 20,000 followers, but we were still only making about $2,000 in sales every single month. And that was before expenses, which in a physical product business, that the expenses are pretty significant. Now, that was a good wake-up call for me of, oh, hang on, you can have a huge audience, but if they're not aligned with what you are selling, then you're not going to make sales. And part of the reason why that audience grew so fast was because I was growing it using things like giveaways, which was only attracting freebie seekers. And I was posting really awesome recipes, which was attracting people who wanted recipes, but it wasn't attracting people who wanted to buy what I was selling. And when you can understand what having the wrong people in your audience looks like, which I'm going to cover in today's episode, then you can start to make some shifts towards growing your audience with the right people. And I'll share some steps that you can take to do that as well today. So let's start with a couple of signs that you might have the wrong people in your audience. So the first one is it feels like you're talking to crickets. You're talking to yourself. Nobody is listening. Nobody is engaging. Nobody's opening your emails. If you're sending emails, it just feels like dead silence. Now, I do want to say that in some cases, people won't engage. If you work in an industry or if you cover an area, a topic that is quite a sensitive thing that people don't want to talk about publicly, then it's probably unlikely that they're going to comment on your posts. But in general, your emails and your DMs shouldn't feel like complete silence. It shouldn't be tumbleweeds in there. And if it is, then that's a sign that maybe your audience isn't the right fit. Number 2, nobody is buying. And when you ask them why, they tell you it's great, but that they don't need it or that they don't have the budget for it. Now, this one is really tricky because somebody can choose not to buy for multiple reasons. And it could be that your content just hasn't bridged the magician's gap, which I've talked about endlessly in previous episodes, but it's the gap between where somebody is right now and where they need to be ready to buy from you. Or it could be that your messaging and your copy doesn't show them why they need to value this thing, why they need to prioritize spending money on this thing right now. But it can also be that they're the wrong people for what you are selling. And one that I see really often is people who are selling services who then switch to selling a DIY version of their service. So for example, let's say that you are a website designer and most of your audience comes to you to have their websites designed by you. And then you start selling a course teaching people how to DIY their websites. Your existing audience doesn't want to DIY. They want you to do it for them. So they're probably not the right audience for the course that you are selling where they're going to DIY. Now, a really good question that you can ask to uncover whether it's the right audience, whether it's the messaging, is in your non-buyer surveys. So after I launch something, I always send a non-buyer survey. Even if the launch was really successful, I will send a survey out asking people who didn't buy, why did you choose not to buy? But a question that you could ask could be, what will you do now to solve this particular problem? Right? So with Launch Magic, I always ask, what will you do now to launch, or where will you learn now to launch your courses? Right? And if they say, well, it's just not a priority for me right now, then that's a good sign that it's the wrong audience. Some reasons why you might end up with the wrong audience. Now, let's talk about this for a second, because it's not something that we intentionally go out to do, right? We don't intentionally go out to reach the wrong people, but a lot of the time we don't realize how the ways that we are showing up online can actually attract the wrong audience for what we are selling. So one cause can be if you have like one reel or one post that goes viral, then the people who maybe follow you off that potentially aren't going to be your ideal clients. I've seen this happen with many people who've posted one thing that's gone viral and then it's attracted this influx of followers who aren't the right people. It could also be that you are sharing way too much for free, attracting all of the freebie seekers who are just trying to piece together the free content, but are never going to pay money to either learn how to do it in a structured course or pay money for you to do it for them. Maybe you're growing your audience with giveaways. I made that mistake. That also attracted freebie seekers. Or maybe you're not being specific enough when it comes to defining your ideal client. So saying that your ideal client is somewhere between the ages of 25 and 45 and lives in Sydney and likes pizza and sushi, that's not a great definition of your ideal client, unfortunately. We need to know what's going on in their head. We need to know what they need so that we can talk specifically to those people. The other mistake might be that you are sharing content that's designed to catch the attention of as many people as possible, and it's doing just that, but it doesn't attract the attention of your ideal client. Remember, quality, not quantity. We want fewer people who are the right fit, rather than a huge number of people who aren't really the right fit. It could be that you don't have a content strategy in place, and that is an essential starting point when it comes to growing your audience is, what is that content strategy? Who are you trying to attract? What are you sharing to attract that ideal client? And it could also be if you've pivoted, right? If you had a business that was previously in one niche and then you've pivoted to another niche, then it's highly likely that there will be a chunk of your audience who are not the right people, and that is okay. Now, it's totally normal. I do want to say it's totally normal to have different ideal clients for different offers. That is okay. And not everyone in your audience will be the ideal client for everything that you sell. But if you're really finding it hard to get any kind of engagement, any kind of sales, it could be that it's majority of your audience is the wrong person, or it could be that your content is not actually that remarkable. It's not really resonating with the right people. So 3 steps to start to fix this. So step 1, get crystal clear on who your ideal client is, how you can connect with them, and where you're going to reach them. So remember how I said it's not going to be 25 to 45 lives in Sydney and likes sushi. That's really broad. We want to be super, super specific. This is one person, not a target market. A target market is when you're giving an age range. We want to think of one person. I always give them a name. One of mine's called Kate. And so I have a different ideal client for every offer as well. I will mention that. But one of my ideal clients, her name is Kate. And, I've given her an age. I know where she lives. I know what she likes to do on the weekend. But I also know what she's struggling with. I know how she's saying that she's struggling with things. I know what words she's using to describe these things. So get clear. What is your ideal client struggling with? What language are they using? Where are they hanging out? Online and offline, so that you can start to get in front of them. Then step 2, create a content strategy that's designed to resonate with this ideal client. We want to meet them where they are at, not where we want them to be. And this can be really hard to do when you're really good at what you do and you know a lot about your subject area. It's really easy to be that expert and talk to them in that expert language, right? I love James Wedmore's analogy. I've used it so many times on the show, but I don't think there's a better way to describe it. Your audience is walking around with a headache. You are the expert in headaches. You know that their headache is caused by dehydration. But if you say to them, hey, here are 3 tips for fixing your dehydration, they're going to be like, oh, no, thank you. I've just got a headache. And they're not going to pay attention. Okay, so you need to step into their shoes, meet them where they are at. And that also means sharing remarkable content, not just tips and tricks and how-tos, but sharing your unique perspectives, sharing your stories, your experiences, sharing content that can't just be replicated by ChatGPT, which a lot of tips and tricks and how-to content can be. Step number 3, build a visibility plan that gets you in front of the right people. Where are they hanging out, online and offline, and how can you intentionally put yourself in front of these people? For me, that looks like speaking at events, that's doing podcast interviews, that's sometimes writing guest articles for other websites, right? Not relying on just putting stuff on social media and hoping that the algorithm's gonna get it in front of the right people, because this is how you end up with the wrong people, by the way. Now, I teach you how to do all 3 of these steps inside Boost Your Brand Superfans. It's my 4-week crash course to fill your audience with more of the right people without spending a cent on Facebook ads or twerking on TikTok if you don't want to, because most of us don't want to. For all of the details on Boost Your Brand Superfans, head to stephtaylor.co/BYBS or send me a DM on Instagram. I'm over there at stephtaylor.co. Send me the word BYBS, just one word. And I'll send you a direct link to sign up for that. And if you haven't already left a quick rating or review, please take 30 seconds to do so in Apple Podcasts. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my team as well, because we put a lot of work into all of these episodes. That's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Catch you next time.